everybody, and thanks for joining me for another episode of The Green Beat, where we talk all about percussion. Today's episode is going to be on snare drum technique, and with that, we're going to talk about posture, we're going to talk about drum height, we're going to talk about grip, whether that be matched or traditional, and lastly, we're going to talk about striking motion, or how we play the snare drum. Before we talk about posture, I'd like to talk about the different types of snare drums that can be found. Snare drums come in a variety of shapes and sizes and produce different tones. But there are just four main types of snare drums that can be found. The first one is a drum set snare, which we normally see found behind the drum set. Second is a concert snare, which we normally see on the concert stage, whether that be with a wind ensemble or a symphony orchestra. Next is a marching snare, which we see used with marching bands of today. And lastly is a field drum. The field drum is just an adaptation of the military drums that were used in the old times. All snare drums have the same basic parts. There's the shell, which can be made up of many different materials, such as wood, like poplar, mahogany, birch, maple, or even babinga, say that 3 times fast, or even metals such as copper, brass, bronze, aluminum, or steel. Some snare drums have also been made out of acrylic. The next thing snare drums have in common are lugs. These keep the tension rods in place. And speaking of tension rods, all snare drums have those. Those control how tight the head is on the drum. Next, all snare drums have hoops. Hoops keep the heads on the drum. The next thing all snare drums have are a batter head. The batter head is the head that we actually strike with the drumstick, or in this case, my hand. The next thing snare drums have is a resonant head, which resonates when the batter head is struck. Next, snare drums have what are called snare wires. These give the snare drum its characteristic tone, and they are stretched across the resonant head. The last thing all snare drums have in common are a snare strainer. These control whether or not the snare wires touch the resonant head, as well as how tight and the height at which they do so. Next, we're going to talk about posture. So whenever we play the snare drum, we want to stand straight up with our feet shoulder width apart and our shoulders relaxed. Next, we can pick up our sticks. So when we hold the snare drum sticks, we hold them in what's called the fulcrum, which is the first joint on your pointer finger and the fleshy part of your thumb. We wrap the other 3 fingers around for support. Your stick should have a tail, which means there should be about 1 inch of the back of the stick coming out of the back of your hand. Next, drop your hands down by your sides. Now, in a relaxed motion, raise your arms and allow your sticks to come to rest on the snare drum. You should come to a relaxed palms down position. This is known as the German grip or match grip, or palms down grip for this instance. This is the usual grip that you'll see when you see someone playing a snare drum. However, there is another grip. Traditional grip dates back to when the drum was slung over a soldier's side and tilted at around a 45-degree angle. So to counteract this tilt, the left stick was cradled between the thumb and the first finger and rested on the ring finger. The first finger would wrap around and the middle finger would rest on top for control. This allowed the soldier to play in a relaxed manner despite the angle of the drum. This grip is also still seen today in most marching bands.
Come here. Come here, I have a secret for you. Come here. Whenever you play the snare drum, it's important that you adjust the stand so that the top of the drum is in line with your pedal. Now hurry up, they might catch us. Hurry up.
Lastly, we're going to talk about the striking motion. So whenever we play the snare drum, we use what is sometimes called the piston stroke. And that just basically means that when we strike the drum, our sticks return to their point of origin. Also, when we play the snare drum, we use the muscles in our wrists and not in our arms. Almost like when we knock on a door. Those same muscles are used when we play the snare drum. One last tip. We never want to play dead center on a snare drum because that's a dead spot and the head does not ring as well. So we play slightly off center. That way we can get the full character of the drum head as well as the full resonance of the drum. Thanks for watching The Green Beat. I'll see you next time.